G'day, I'm Gary. I'm going to plant a stem cutting from a yellow dragon fruit. This is an Ecuador Palora. Before I do that, I'll go over how I select a fruit that's going to give me the best opportunity to be successful. I'll also show you how I prepare the cutting and how I prepare the setup for the cutting. I'll also cover a few facts that I know about dragon fruit. When I go into a market, what I'm looking for is a good size ripe fruit with a lot of stem left to it. So this one here was the biggest and the most yellow. There were a few other fruits there that were greener and they were also smaller. So I selected this one. This one weighed 1 pound. This one also has 4 spines on the stem. Sometimes if you look them over, they'll still have the tip. So this was a little bit further down the stem. So when they harvest the Paloras, they leave a little bit of stem on it. When you harvest the other varieties, there's very little stem left. What I want to do is remove the stem. I have a craft knife, so I'm going to make a couple of incisions. First, I'll come across here from that side. Now I've loosened that up. And on the other side, I'll do the same. Now that it's a little looser, I can get in there and slice it through. And at that point, I can just pop it off. And I've got a nice clean cut on the fruit. I could set this to the one side and eat it a little later on. So now I've got the stem cutting. This area here is an open wound. And if I don't cover it, it's going to dehydrate the stem. When I went to the store, I looked for a stem piece that was still full. The fruit I was looking for is firm, it's got good weight to it, and it hasn't started to dehydrate. So this is a fairly fresh fruit. The other fruit that it came in with were greener. This one's nice and yellow. So this was probably harvested at the same time as the other fruit. It stayed on the plant a little longer, so it's going to be riper and it's going to be sweeter than some of the others. To protect the freshly cut surface, I'm applying some liquid bandage. It's a waterproof antiseptic that will prevent some water loss and decay to set in. I applied a liberal amount to cover the whole surface, including the edges. If it's safe for our skin, it should be safe for plants. It dries fairly quickly, but I left it for a day because I was putting it in a humid environment. I'm going to set the cutting on the surface like that. Once it develops roots, they're going to be very delicate, and I'm going to have to be gentle when I remove it from the cell and transplant it into another pot. To reduce the amount of damage that I cause to the roots, I'm going to line the cells with tool. So I've got a piece of scrap tool here that I'm going to fill with the medium. This medium is simply the pellets that came with it. So this is coconut coir. It's inert and I've used it for growing seedlings and other plants and it works pretty good. So I just have to fill the tool with some of the damp coir, make a little bit of a ball. Then I can drop it into the cell, make sure that the edges are fairly level, and I'll just fill up the cell with the coconut coir, pack that in. The amount of coir that I'm using is one of those pellets that's been expanded, and I've been using it to grow seedlings. I'm just going to reuse it. So I'll pack that in like that. There's a lot of excess that I'm just going to carefully trim. Now I've got a nice little pot inside a pot. So when I go to remove the cutting later on, all I have to do is grab the whole thing, will lift out, and I should be able to keep the root ball intact. So I'll just pack that back in and I'll move on to the next step. Now I've got everything set up, ready to go. I'm going to use my burpee self-watering seed starting system. I've been using it for growing my seedlings, and I'm going to use it for growing cuttings. So before I do that, I'm going to make a couple of little stakes just to make sure that I prop it up correctly, and for that I'm going to use my bamboo that I grow. So the bamboo has got little side shoots, and I'm going to just trim some of these off. I'll be able to use these to stake up my seedlings and my cuttings. So here's my prepared cutting. Now this is dry, I'm going to plant it. I also added a thin band of liquid bandage up from the bottom here. So this is the bottom and this is the top of the cutting. It has a taper to it, and if you look there, the fruit will come up this way. The thorns, if they were still present, they'd be pointing upwards. So this area here is kind of flat and pointing up. So when I plant it, I'll set it in like that. It has 5 areolas or buds, potentially where new growth could sprout from. Originally I counted 4. Chances are the new growth will come from the top here. If you look at the bottom, you can see that it's got a core in the centre, and around the outer edges of the core is the cambium layer, and that's where the roots will start forming from. So I'll just plant this one in this cell here. I'm just going to press it down so it makes firm contact with the soil. Just to support it and keep it in place, I'm going to put in a couple of bamboo stakes. The bamboo stakes are just small fine pieces that I trim from the bamboo that I grow. So that'll go in like that, and that won't wiggle around too much. The one that I planted about a month ago came from a yellow dragon fruit. I don't believe it's a Palora, it has a different flavour. The Palora has a complex flavour, this one had more of a cane sugar flavour. And if you look at the bottom, it's already started to form roots. At this stage, the roots are very delicate, and I have to be careful not to damage them. This was a larger piece. Originally it was about this long. I planted it a little bit too deep, and it started to rot around the base, so I removed all the rot and replanted it. So this is a smaller cutting, but it's starting to grow roots, so I'm hopeful that this is going to be successful. I don't know if it's a Palora or if it's another variety, because there are many other varieties of yellow dragon fruit from Ecuador. Both cuttings came from Ecuador, or both fruits came from Ecuador. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a Palora. I'll set that back like that, and I'll leave it be. I've been using this Burpee self-watering seed starting system for a while now. It's worked out well for me. It has a water reservoir on the bottom, and the coconut coir wicks up the moisture to where the seedlings are, and it keeps it a nice consistency. The only issue that I've had with it has been the lid, and someone commented in one of my other videos that they have it set up outside and the wind blows it off. So I've been using these binder clips to hold it in place. So I'm just going to set that back on top. In the past I've had an issue with bumping it, and it does bump easily, but the binder clips hold it really tight. So now it's in place, I can knock it around and it's going to stay put. So that's pretty much it. I'll check it from time to time. Once the roots start to grow a little bit more, I'm going to leave it alone, and once it starts sprouting new growth, that's when I'll transplant it into my 2-inch pots. My 2-inch pots I've got set up in a similar way. I've lined it with tulle, and I've also got water on the bottom, so this is a self-watering system as well. This soil is a little different than what I've got in here. I'll talk about this in another video. But these are some of my seedlings that I've already transplanted. I hope you've got something out of this video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to leave a comment, feel free to leave a comment. If you've also had success growing cuttings from store-bought fruit, please feel free to leave your comment below. Last year I tried growing them in water and it was a total failure. Cactus aren't water plants, and unless you put the cuttings in at the exact right time, when the correct auxins or plant hormones are ready to go, chances are it's going to rot. That's what happened to me last year. I tried growing 5 cuttings in water and they all failed. So this year I've tried to refine things and I think I've got it sorted out. So with that, thanks for watching and don't forget to eat what you grow. Goodbye.